How are you coping with the loss of your son?
Well, I'm doing this. And an organization sprang up around us, founded by some of the members of the church where Francine and our sons go, Trinity Episcopal in Newtown. And the organization was named in Ben's honor. It's called Ben's Lighthouse. It's a community service organization. And so I'm an advisor to the board of directors there. That is a great help. But if I were to be honest about the one thing that has allowed me to cope to the degree that I have, has been family and friends, and the community. Newtown is a remarkable community.
So everyone comes together?
People have come together in ways you couldn't even imagine. Yeah, all kinds of ways to serve all kinds of purposes and solve all kinds of problems and do all kinds of amazing things. It almost defies description how much help they've all been. And we also lean on some of the other families as well, and we work with them, and they lean on us, and we all try to get through this together.
Were you involved with helping to put an end to gun violence prior to the tragedy at Sandy Hook?
No.
You weren't?
Nope.
I understand you've been working closely with Sandy Hook Promise. Could you explain what that is and what they're doing to take action against gun violence?
Well, Sandy Hook Promise is doing a lot, and gun violence is only one part of it.
Okay.
Sandy Hook Promise is an organization that it also sprang up from our neighbors and friends around the town. And right now their focus is a concept called Promise Communities. And what they're doing is taking tools right now the sort of laboratory work is being done in Ohio, in school districts in Ohio, and then after that it'll branch out. But they're taking these tools to these schools and the communities surrounding the schools to help foster community connectedness and gun responsibility and gun safety and mental wellness and mental first aid. They're trying to give these tools to educators and to community members and to parents so that these people can use this knowledge and this understanding first in their family and then in their communities and in their churches and their schools and eventually across the country.
Okay.
It's a more holistic approach. It's a wider focus than just focusing on.
It sounds like
firearms.
a very effective cause.
We hope so. I mean, it's still, as I said, it's still a laboratory. It's still only a few years out. We're still figuring out if these things are going to work. Some things clearly have worked, some things haven't. You learn as you go.
What can our listeners and community do to take action against what happened and just this kind of violence in general?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer because there's a lot of smaller questions inside that question. So I'll do my best to come at it from a general point of view. But in my view, the one thing that people can do to take to make an immediate change is to try and be aware of their immediate circles, whether it's their family, their friends, or their community, and look for those places where we may find what I call the fatal intersection of brain illness and easy access to high-powered weapons. So look around and see, is there somebody who isn't doing well? Is there somebody who needs your help? Is there somebody that you need to connect to on a level that you might not ordinarily have thought of connecting them with them on? Somebody you can get help for or help in that way. And then the other thing to look at is the access question. What's in the house? Who has access? Is it secure? That's the second part of it. So it's not either one of those things separately that happened to us in Sandy Hook. It was the combination. It was the intersection of those things. And that's where people need to look. That's the first place where people need to look.
I agree 100%. It just seems like a lot of people ignore people a lot of times that have mental issues, and it's a combination, like you said.
We have a convenient and I think completely mistaken cultural disregard for brain illness.
I agree.
And there's proof of that in a couple of ways. First of all, when someone suffers from bipolar disorder, or schizophrenia or depression. How do we talk about that? What words do we use? We say, oh, he's depressed, she's bipolar, he's schizophrenic. If somebody has cancer or multiple sclerosis, you don't say she is multiple sclerosis. You don't say, oh, he's cancer. Or you don't even say he's cancerous. You say he has this. We don't know enough about the way the brain works. We have to find out how these things happen at the cellular level. We have to understand the pathologies that lead to a predisposition toward violent behavior. And we can and we will. And when we do, one of the things I say is, imagine what it's like. Imagine what it would be like to go to a doctor and from a scan or some kind of, other technical examination, you find a diagnosis of a predisposition toward violence, or you find the little marker for a brain illness that is going to develop in 15 years. And then you treat that the way you treat an infection. Imagine how far that would go to take the stigma away from brain illnesses and the marginalization away from that, so that people aren't so scared and there's so much stigma associated with brain illness. And that creates a situation where people don't want to get help. And that creates a situation where people are isolated. And that creates a situation where people can turn violent. And that's what happened to us.
One more question. Do you think the pro-gun activists and the anti-gun activists can ever work together and somehow come up with an agreement on gun laws?
Yes, with an enormous caveat. Both sides of this conversation have to recognize the humanity that we all share. Because if you don't do that, you can't establish trust. And if you can't establish trust, there's going to be no progress. You can't work together on anything, So there may be some technical aspects of legislation where people on opposite sides might feel the same way about some things. We've seen that happen in the past where, hardcore left progressive types will find themselves agreeing with libertarian Tea Party types over something that has to do with, I don't know whether it's governmental overreach or, where, whatever. There's a number of places where we've seen that happen. So could they work together? Maybe, yeah. But there's going to have to be a release of the kind of rhetoric that both sides are guilty of. There's going to have to be a new way to look at it. And you have to find a more helpful approach than just the usual kind of name-calling and strident disagreement.